Hello cyber babes and pastel chicks. Since I was asked about my shipping preferences for Hypnosis Mike, let's get into it. Before I start, please remember these are just my opinions and personal preferences. With that in mind, let's start. First off, let's talk about ships I don't really mind, but I don't ship primarily. Judo times Doppo. These two are a rather rare pair, but I can understand the appeal of them together. One scene that sticks out is, during an ARB event Doppo had a run-in with Judo wanting to interrogate him since Doppo was mistaken for a possible molester. When Judo asked to examine Doppo's belongings, Judo found books titled 101 Easy Ways to Die and How to Get 1000% Enjoyment Out of Life, hinting to Doppo's struggles. Judo seemed worried, even saying to Doppo he must have it rough. He even tried to comfort him when Doppo was ready to have a breakdown. While they don't interact much in the anime or manga, during times within the ARB, they seemed to have a mutual respect towards each other. Also, top Judo and bottom Doppo. Rio times Judo. It shouldn't be a surprise that even I don't mind these two together. Not only are they in Mad Trigger crew together, they both get along very well. Both Rio and Judo are calm and polite people who fit very well together. They have similar personalities and attitudes. As far as they go, simply put, they just work. Top Rio and bottom Judo. Jakurai times Ramada. While I don't ship them that much, I do think the ship is quite adorable. Ramada and Jakurai hit it off quite quickly during the beginning of the H era. They seemed to spend time together a lot. Despite the major difference in Jakurai's calm nature to Ramada's loud and hyper one, they have a good balance between each other. Even though they no longer get along, it seems that Jakurai doesn't completely hate Ramada for what he did, stating several times in the manga and anime that he wants to help and save Ramada. It's very admirable how much Jakurai still cares for him. Their past history makes for a cute and complicated love story, and I love that. Top Jakurai and bottom Ramada. Now let's talk about the ships I do have. I'll go in order from ships I like to ships I love. Number 1 should be quite obvious, but let's jump into it. Starting us off is Gentaro times Ramada. These two are another rare pair that not many ship. Totally fine, but I happily do. It might seem a bit unlikely to ship these two. There is something cute about how they look together. They are always quite close, and Gentaro seems to care about him a great deal. Not to mention how cute their interactions were in season 2. Top Gentaro and bottom Ramada. Hitoya times Jakurai. Considering the history Hitoya and Jakurai have, it shouldn't be a shock to see I ship them too. They both knew each other since middle school and into their college years, from age 14 to 23. They seemed to have a good relationship despite some rocky moments. Even after their fight as young adults, Jakurai still seems to care about Hitoya and still respects him. I would honestly love for them to rekindle their relationship. Top Hitoya and bottom Jakurai. Also, a few ships I have but don't seriously ship them are pairs like Ichiro and Kuko, Sasara and Kuko, Hifumi and Ichiro. I know that one is really out there. I more or less ship them as friends with gay energy. Side note before we get to the top 5, Rei, Saburo and Jiro aren't shipped with anyone. I don't like Rei personally. I don't really want to ship Jiro with anyone in the series. Again, this is a personal preference, and Saburo is way too young for the entire cast of characters. With that out of the way, let's get to the top 5. Rio times Dice. While they don't have a lengthy history compared to the other ships I have, it's hard for me to not ship them. The fact that Rio found Dice on the street starving and willingly helped him is so sweet. I can imagine Dice traveling to Yokohama just to eat Rio's food since he seems to love it a lot. They have sparse interactions, but at the times they do, it feels like a treat for us Rio Dice shippers. Also, it was cute as hell when Dice called him his man in season 2. Top Rio and bottom Dice. Kuko times Jyushi. Another ship with a very small fan base and not a lot of art, but I absolutely love the dynamic of Kuko and Jyushi. They meet a bit later than most of the other ships, and they initially didn't get along, but they seemed to grow closer once Baddest Temple was formed. Kuko has gone to a couple of Jyushi's shows and even knows where he lives and where Jyushi's grandmother's grave is. Kuko was even welcomed into Jyushi's house and room to wait for him. While Kuko can come across harsh or rude, he's actually very sweet to Jyushi when he needs to be, such as him telling Jyushi he was strong and said that if he ever falls apart that he would be there to help put him back together. It's endearing to see a soft and gentle side to Kuko. Top Kuko and bottom Jyushi, Sasara times Rosho. When it comes to ships for Hipmike, these two are an obvious pick. While they seemed like an unlikely duo when they attended the comedy training academy, as time went on these two became inseparable. Sasara had initially planned to avoid Rosho because of his intimidating appearance, but a misunderstanding occurred. They ended up hitting it off and became a comedy duo. Sasara was actually the one who gave Rosho those glasses to help make him look less intimidating. And Rosho still wears them even though he doesn't need them. Even after breaking off the duo, they still seem to be friends. I mean, Sasara made several copies of Rosho's keys to get into his apartment. Not to mention Sasara was always thinking about Rosho. He actually became friends with Samatoki because he looked like Rosho. That is so adorable. Also, they really can't be without one another. They were seen half the time side by side in season 2. Top Sasara, bottom Rosho, Hifumi times Doppo. There's a lot to cover for these two. Hifumi and Doppo are childhood friends and grew up together, went to school together and now currently live together. Back in high school, after Hifumi had gone through the moment that would traumatize him, Doppo was there to support and help him. Hifumi was struggling in his day-to-day life and Doppo was always there for him. He even managed to help Hifumi get a job alongside him. This was short-lived though. Since their boss was exploiting and mocking Hifumi for his fear of women, Doppo punched his boss for it and quit the job along with Hifumi. Hifumi felt completely guilty for hurting his dearest friend. Hifumi took Doppo's words to heart. I felt like there was a completely different person looking back at me. From this point on, Hifumi would use his jacket to help him get through his trauma. The mutual love and respect they have for one another is just beautiful. There's so much more to their ship, living together, Hifumi being stabbed to protect Doppo, Hifumi cooking for them, making breakfast for them, how often Hifumi puts his hands on Doppo. The list goes on, but I'll end the Hifumi and Doppo log by saying they are the most romantic and adorable Hypnosis Mic ship, and it's why they are ranked second place. Top Hifumi and bottom Doppo. Samatoki times Ichiro. I think it was pretty obvious these two would be number 1. But what you may not know is these two are how I found Hypnosis Mic. To make a long story short, a couple years ago, stumbled across these two while I was looking for character references, and found myself shipping these two guys I knew nothing about. I was determined to find out their names and eventually did. It wasn't until 2020 when it got an anime did I become fully addicted to their ship and the series. Now, there is a lot to talk about in regards of their relationship, but I'll keep it as short as I can. During their first meeting, Samatoki actually did a huge favor for Ichiro by convincing him to get out of debt collecting as a job, and Ichiro willingly listened. After Ichiro left the stairway to heaven, Samatoki asked if he and Kuko wanted to roll with him and Sasara. Ichiro wasn't sure at the time, but later joined up with mad comic dialogue. During this time, Ichiro was struggling to get enough money from his other jobs. He was working to get a new apartment for him and his little brothers. Samatoki asked him for a small favor, to dispatch these guys using a small mixed-use building for a home base for their crimes. Since Samatoki knew the owner of the building, Ichiro was happy to help out Samatoki, so he agreed. Afterwards, Samatoki offered the place to Ichiro, saying rent was cheap and he would pay the security deposit, and even told Ichiro he should start an odd job business out of the house. This house in the same one the Buster Bros live in currently. Before the TDD breakup, Samatoki and Ichiro had a good relationship and were similar in many ways and thought the same way too. Samatoki was even sweet enough to comfort Ichiro when Kuko walked away from him. Of course, they hate each other currently. That was until the drama track. In the drama track, when 6 colors combine begins, Samatoki learned the truth of TDD breakup and his sister leaving him. Samatoki actually approached Ichiro to apologize.
あのよ。まあなんつうか、すれ違ってたみてえだな。
は？
俺はおめえがネムをそそのかしたと思って。いや、ちげえな。そりゃ言い訳だ。俺がどう思ってても、おめえの弟たちを見殺しにした事実は変わんねえ。悪かった。
After the apology, Samatoki speaks with a very low and gentle voice to Ichiro quite often now. The dynamic of Samatoki and Ichiro is just so interesting and has a lot of depth. There's a lot of things I didn't talk about either, like Ichiro having his ears pierced during the TDD like Samatoki, his BB jacket being blue and red like Samatoki's eyes. These two rank at the very top. I absolutely love them together. Top Samatoki and bottom Ichiro. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate you sticking with me and my rambling until the end. Thank you for watching. If there's anything you want to ask me, feel free.